This is A Course in Miracles. Do not be afraid to take it. Step forward with great willingness into an abbreviated version, one that we hope you will find both easy to understand and enjoyable. Hi, my name is Beth Geer, author of Awakening to One Love, and along with film producer John Overby, we're excited to present to you this video series on each of the 31 chapters from the text of A Course in Miracles. I have carefully selected quotes from each of the chapter sections in order to reduce them to their clearest meaning. Each section is then followed by a brief summary in order to help deepen the message. We have done this only to be truly helpful to you and to further your understanding of A Course in Miracles. Peace be with you as you journey into love. A Course in Miracles, Chapter 9, The Acceptance of the Atonement. Section 1, The Acceptance of Reality. Reality cannot threaten anything except illusions, since reality can only uphold the truth. What seems to be the fear of God is really the fear of your own reality. If you do not know what your reality is, why would you be so sure that it is fearful? All this could mean is that you are arbitrarily associating something beyond your awareness with something you do not want. It is evident, then, that you are judging something of which you are totally unaware. I have emphasized many times that the Holy Spirit will never call upon you to sacrifice anything. But if you ask the sacrifice of reality of yourself, the Holy Spirit must remind you that this is not God's will, because it is not yours. How sensible can your messages be when you ask for what you do not want? You may insist that the Holy Spirit does not answer you, but it might be wiser to consider the kind of questioner you are. You do not ask only for what you want. When you ask the Holy Spirit for what would hurt you, He cannot answer, because nothing can hurt you, and so you are asking for nothing. Any wish that stems from the ego is a wish for nothing, and to ask for it is not a request. Willing against reality, though impossible, can be made into a very persistent goal, even though you do not want it. Remember, then, that God's will is already possible, and nothing else will ever be. You cannot distort reality and know what it is, and if you do distort reality, you will experience anxiety, depression, and ultimately panic, because you are trying to make yourself unreal. When you feel these things, do not try to look beyond yourself for truth can only be within you. Say, therefore, Christ is in me, and where He is, God must be, for Christ is part of Him. In summary, Section 1, The Acceptance of Reality, is saying, our true reality is that we are one with God, Christ, and each other. This reality is nothing even close to our bodily experience we are having here now. So how do we accept our true reality when we clearly do not know what it is? We ask the Holy Spirit to show it to us. Currently, we are asking the wrong question and therefore receiving an unacceptable answer. This is because we are allowing the ego to do all the talking for us. It wants us stuck here in these bodies for as long as possible and would only ask for what we do not really want, more of this world, which will only result in more of what will delay us from reaching our true reality. Let us cease to ask for what we do not want. Let us no longer ask for the nothing that is this world, and ask instead for what we really want, to know the truth of God's reality and our place within it. Section 2, The Answer to Prayer. Everyone who ever tried to use prayer to ask for something has experienced what appears to be failure. Let us suppose, then, that what you ask of the Holy Spirit is what you really want, but you are still afraid of it. Should this be the case, your attainment of it would no longer be what you want. An individual may ask for physical healing because he is fearful of bodily harm. At the same time, if he were healed physically, the threat to his thought system might be considerably more fearful to him than its physical expression. This request is, therefore, not for healing at all. The very fact that the Holy Spirit has been asked for anything will ensure a response. Yet it is equally certain that no response given by him will ever be one that would increase fear. There are many answers you have already received, but have not yet heard. I assure you that they are waiting for you. If you would know your prayers are answered, never doubt a Son of God. The message your brother gives you is up to you. Your decision about him determines the message you receive. Remember that the Holy Spirit is in him, and his voice speaks to you through him. Your brother may not know who he is, but there is a light in his mind that does know. This light can shine into yours, giving truth to his words and making you able to hear them. The Holy Spirit extends from your mind to his and answers you. I love you for the truth in you, as God does. Your deceptions may deceive you, but they cannot deceive me. Believe in your brothers because I believe in you, and you will learn that my belief in you is justified. Never forget, then, that you set the value on what you receive and price it by what you give. You can ask of the Holy Spirit, then, only by giving to him, and you can give to him only where you recognize him. If you recognize him in everyone, consider how much you will be asking of him and how much you will receive. Say then to everyone, because I will to know myself, I see you as God's Son and my brother. In summary, Section 2, the answer to prayer is saying, there seem to be times our prayers go unheard and unanswered. This is not because God is not listening or refusing to answer. Rather, the answer we really want, but have forgotten, is being saved for us until we are ready for it. If we want God's answer, we must make ourselves ready through seeing each other correctly. We must open our minds to the idea that God is within each and every person we meet or think of, and we must love them accordingly. Your decision about them determines when you receive God's reply. If you see yourself and them as bodies, then God's reply is temporarily blocked. How much do we value one another? Are we willing to look past the ego and all its physical works to the light contained therein? If so, then be ready to receive the bountiful answer to every prayer you have ever had. Section 3. The correction of error. The alertness of the ego to the errors of other egos is not the kind of vigilance the Holy Spirit would have you maintain. To the ego, it is kind and right and good to point out errors and correct them. Errors are of the ego, and correction of errors lies in the relinquishment of the ego. If you point out the errors of your brother's ego, you must be seeing through yours, because the Holy Spirit does not perceive his errors. When you react at all to errors, you are not listening to the Holy Spirit. When a brother behaves insanely, You can heal him only by perceiving the sanity in him. If you perceive his errors and accept them, you are accepting yours. If you want to give yours over to the Holy Spirit, you must do this with his. Unless this becomes the one way in which you handle all errors, you cannot understand how all errors are undone. You cannot correct yourself. Is it possible, then, for you to correct another? Your brother's errors are not of him, any more than yours are of you. The Holy Spirit in you forgives all things in you and in your brother. Any attempt you make to correct a brother means that you believe correction by you is possible, and this can only be the arrogance of the ego. Correction is of God, who does not know of arrogance. Do not undertake his function, or you will forget yours. He will teach you how to see yourself without condemnation by learning how to look on everything without it. Condemnation will then not be real to you, and all your errors will be forgiven. In summary, Section 3, the correction of error is saying, anytime we react to our fellow brothers and sisters here in this world as bodies, we are judging them to be something they are not. This is a perceptual error in need of correction. The only way to be free of this ego perception is to give over all judgment to the Holy Spirit, who knows the truth about us. We do this through making no assumptions about anyone, for we do not know who they truly are in spirit. By so doing, we correct all forms of error that we look upon, simply by acknowledging the falsity we see. The Holy Spirit will do the rest. Section 4. The Holy Spirit's Plan of Forgiveness. To forgive is to overlook. Look, then, beyond error, and do not let your perception rest upon it, for you will believe what your perception holds. You do not understand how to overlook errors, or you would not make them. The way to undo them, therefore, is not of you, but for you. The ego's plan is to have you see error clearly first, and then overlook it. Yet, how can you overlook what you have made real? By seeing it clearly, you have made it real, and cannot overlook it. Forgiveness through the Holy Spirit lies simply in looking beyond error from the beginning, and thus keeping it unreal for you. Fairy tales can be pleasant or fearful, but no one calls them true. Children may believe in them, and so, for a while, the tales are true for them. Reality has not gone in the meanwhile. The second coming is the awareness of reality, not its return. Behold, my child, reality is here. It belongs to you and me and God, and is perfectly satisfying to all of us. Only this awareness heals, because it is the awareness of truth. In summary, Section 4, the Holy Spirit's plan of forgiveness is saying, the plan forgiveness presents is a simple one. Overlook all errors we see with our bodily eyes in the world outside of us. To overlook the world of separation is to forgive it. Forgiveness, then, is to merely forgive its realness. For the time being, we appear to be caught up in a child's fantasy world. We are in need of assistance in order to waken from this false reality. We do this by seeing it correctly. The ability to do this is not ours, but rather it is done for us through the Holy Spirit's help as a result of our choice to see it differently. The real world is not gone simply because we cannot see it. It but awaits our awareness of its presence. We become aware of God's reality through forgiving the one we currently see now. Section 5. The Unhealed Healer. Let us consider the unhealed healer more carefully now. Every healer who searches fantasies for truth must be unhealed because he does not know where to look for truth, and therefore does not have the answer to the problem of healing. There is an advantage to bringing nightmares into awareness, but only to teach that they are not real, and that anything they contain is meaningless. The unhealed healer cannot do this because he does not believe it. Nothing real has happened to the unhealed healer, and he must learn from his own teaching. When God said, "Let there be light," there was light. Can you find light by analyzing darkness, as the psychotherapist does, or like the theologian, by acknowledging darkness in yourself and looking for a distant light to remove it, while emphasizing the distance? A therapist does not heal. He lets healing be. The Holy Spirit is the only therapist. He makes healing clear in any situation in which He is the guide. You can only let Him fulfill His function. He will tell you exactly what to do to help anyone He sends to you for help, and will speak to him through you if you do not interfere. As you awaken other minds to the Holy Spirit through Him and not yourself, you will understand that you are not obeying the laws of this world. This course offers a very direct and a very simple learning situation, and provides the guide who tells you what to do. If you do it, you will see that it works. By following the right guide, you will learn the simplest of all lessons. By their fruits ye shall know them, and they shall know themselves. In summary, Section 5, The Unhealed Healer, is saying, many of us like to analyze our problems, hashing them over and over to no end except to only conclude there is no conclusion. The pain remains, and the situation goes on unhealed. We may attempt to enlist the help of others who claim to be professional healers, such as psychotherapists and religious leaders. However, many of these individuals do not know where true healing can be found, and may only direct you in the same direction you have already been traveling. In order to heal, we must call on our inner therapist, the Holy Spirit. Our healing always involves His loving word, that we are already healed and whole, for we have never left the perfection of God's kingdom, but only dream a dream that this is so. In fact, it is a nightmare for most. We will not awaken through analyzing the nightmare. A nightmare is only dissipated through waking from it, and when we wake, we will no longer believe in its reality. We awaken through listening to our inner therapist, who directs us to clear away all mistaken beliefs about ourselves and others, and we will know if we have done so by the loving actions and thoughts we have, the fruits we yield. Section 6. The Acceptance of Your Brother. How can you become increasingly aware of the Holy Spirit in you except by His effects? If you inspire joy and others react to you with joy, even though you are not experiencing joy yourself, there must be something in you that is capable of producing it. It seems to you that the Holy Spirit does not produce joy consistently in you only because you do not consistently arouse joy in others. Their reactions to you are your evaluations of His consistency. What you offer to your brother, you offer to him, because he cannot go beyond your offering in his giving. This is not because he limits his giving, but simply because you have limited your receiving. If your brothers are part of you, will you accept them? If what you do to my brother you do to me, and if you do everything for yourself because we are part of you, everything we do belongs to you as well. Everyone God created is part of you and shares his glory with you. Wholeness is indivisible, but you cannot learn of your wholeness until you see it everywhere. Could you but accept one of them, you would not want anything the world has to offer. Accept your brother in this world and accept nothing else, for in him you will find your creations, because he created them with you. You will never know that you are co-creator with God until you learn that your brother is co-creator with you. In summary, Section 6, the acceptance of your brother is saying, what we give is what we will receive. This is an understood basic law of living. Though everyone seems to understand this, we behave in ways towards each other that often reflect the desire for unhappiness. This can only mean one of two things. Either we prefer unhappiness, or we do not fully understand the law of giving after all. We will receive from others what we have given them, so let us give them only love. This will inspire joy in them because it is God's will that we give what He has given us. Yet there are times we feel unloving towards one another. How then is this overcome in order to maintain God's will? We must learn to accept our brothers as part of us and choose only peace with them, lest we wage war upon ourselves. Such wholeness cannot be learned until we see it in everyone. Once we truly accept our wholeness, we will move into a state of unity where the real world we co-created with each other and God resides. Section 7. The two evaluations. God's will is your salvation. Your brothers are everywhere. You do not have to seek far for salvation. Every minute and every second gives you a chance to save yourself. Do not lose these chances, not because they will not return, but because delay of joy is needless. It is perfectly obvious that if the Holy Spirit looks with love on all He perceives, He looks with love on you. His evaluation of you is based on His knowledge of what you are, and so He evaluates you truly. The ego is also in your mind because you have accepted it there. Its evaluation of you, however, is the exact opposite of the Holy Spirit's, because the ego does not love you. You, then, have two conflicting evaluations of yourself in your mind, and they cannot both be true. The ego will attack your motives as soon as they become clearly out of accord with its perception of you. This is when it will shift abruptly from suspiciousness to viciousness, since its uncertainty is increased. If you choose to see yourself as unloving, you will not be happy. You cannot evaluate an insane belief system from within it. You can only go beyond it. Look back from a point where sanity exists and see the contrast. Whenever you question your value, say, God Himself is incomplete without me. Remember this when the ego speaks, and you will not hear it. You do not want anything else. In summary, Section 7, the two evaluations, is saying, we have two voices within our minds, each defining us in diametrically opposed ways. The ego would have us believe we are vicious creatures who are in constant competition with one another, striving for love and happiness. The Holy Spirit tells us that we are a part of all that is, and that to strive for love and happiness is insane. His definition of us is so lofty, we can scarcely grasp even a faint hint of what it means to be a part of God's identity. When we find ourselves believing in the ego's definition of us, we can dispel its untruth by returning to the truth. God Himself is incomplete without us. And so how can we, who complete God Himself, feel the need to strive to be anything more? And with this thought, we will have let the one true evaluation of ourself be true, and the ego's voice will be muted. The world then will shift to accommodate our new self-perception, and what we will see is beyond any evaluation our ego could ever conceive of. We will want nothing else. Section 8. Grandeur versus Grandiosity. Grandeur is of God, and only of Him. Therefore, it is in you. We said before that the ego vacillates between suspiciousness and viciousness. It remains suspicious as long as you despair of yourself. It shifts to viciousness when you decide not to tolerate self-abasement and seek relief. The ego does not understand the difference between grandeur and grandiosity because it sees no difference between miracle impulses and the ego-alien beliefs of its own. Its profound sense of vulnerability renders it incapable of judgment except in terms of attack. If you accept its offer of grandiosity, it will attack immediately. The ego is immobilized in the presence of God's grandeur because His grandeur establishes your freedom. Grandeur is totally without illusions, and because it is real, it is compellingly convincing. You made grandiosity and are afraid of it because it is a form of attack, but your grandeur is of God who created it out of His love. It is easy to distinguish between grandeur and grandiosity because love is returned and pride is not. You did not establish your value, and it needs no defense. In summary, Section 8, Grandeur versus Grandiosity is saying, grandeur is God's definition of us. It is to know we are a part of one grand being, at one with all creation. Grandiosity is the ego's definition of us, a small self, in need of proving its worth to others through competition, attack, and conflict. It is not arrogance to think we are indestructible, eternal beings. It is arrogance to think we could ever be anything less. And to know our grandeur is to know we need not prove our perfection to anyone. It is inherent in who we are. As we accept our united grandeur, we thus accept the atonement, which undoes the ego and this world of pain and suffering entirely. This concludes Chapter 9, The Acceptance of the Atonement. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to like and subscribe. And I have so much more to offer you on my website. You'll find the link to it under the About tab in the upper right-hand corner of this channel. See you there. Thanks again, and peace be with you.